There are no individual statements, only statement-producing mechanic assemblages.
Flicker theory with Tadas Vinokur. Flicker theory with Tadas Vinokur.
We're going to be talking about Freud. Hello everyone, I'm your host, Tadas Vinokur. Welcome to Flicker Theory Reviews. Today, we're going to continue our analysis of 1,000 Plateaus with a brand new chapter, One or Several Wolves. This is going to be a perfect chance for us to pay homage to Freud and his Oedipal concept, which for D&G always reeked of capitalist indoctrination. To be more precise, D&G did not shy away from critiquing Freudian psychoanalysis. Indeed, in D&G's book Anti-Oedipus, 1972, they criticized Freud for really reciprocating capitalist agenda with his theory of Oedipus complex. For D&G, there was nothing that could possibly indicate that Oedipus complex was innate to the unconscious. They thought that the idea that the little boy falls in love with his mother and wants to kill his father was nothing more than a fairy tale that successfully reciprocated capitalist dictum of authority. In a word, D&G claimed that Oedipus complex is a mere byproduct of capitalism. So, in One or Several Wolves, D&G tried to explore orthodox psychoanalysis and develop further their poignant critique of Freud. Also, D&G went to explore the possible ways of understanding the unconscious. Most importantly, in this chapter, D&G tried to emphasize that psychoanalysis simplifies, constricts everything by reducing complexity to unity. They tried to substantiate this argument by looking at Freudian case of the Wolfman. I will try to briefly elaborate on the story of the Wolfman. Wolfman, or Sergei Pankejeff, was a famous client of Freud. During the treatment of Wolfman, Freud was able to utilize the psychodynamic approach, which basically entails looking at patients' childhood experiences as though they had an impact on the grown man's psyche. Here we could quote Wordsworth, who said that the child is the father of the man. As early as 1906, the Wolfman started to experience signs of depression. After Wolfman's father committed suicide in 1907, Wolfman began seeking treatment for his own depression. When Freud started his analysis with Wolfman, Freud focused mostly on a single Wolfman's dream. I'll read the transcript of the dream very quickly. Wolfman claimed, "I dreamt that it was night and that I was laying in bed. Suddenly, the window opened of its own accord, and I was terrified to see that some white wolves were sitting on the big walnut tree in front of the window. There were 6 or 7 of them. The wolves were quite white and looked more like foxes or sheepdogs, for they had big tails like foxes, and they had their ears prickled like dogs when they pay attention to something. In great terror, evidently of being eaten up by the wolves, I screamed and woke up. My nurse hurried to my bed to see what had happened to me. It took quite a long while before I was convinced that it had only been a dream." Well, how did Freud interpret this dream then? Freud thought that this dream was a result of Wolfman witnessing his parents having sex when he was a child. However, Freud's analysis was not that simple. Freud also thought that the amount of wolves was an important symbol within this dream. Freud quickly attributed the number 7, there were 7 wolves in the dream, to Wolfman's experience of being afraid as a child of a picture of a wolf from the fairy tale The 7 Little Goats. To state the obvious, Freud thought that the number 7 from the name of the fairy tale got transferred to the number of wolves in Wolfman's dream. Also, it turned out that the Wolfman had a Latin teacher whose name was Wolf, which in turn would imply, according to Freud, that the wolf represents the father who threatens with castration. This Freudian approach of reducing multiple wolves to one wolf who represents the father is symbolic of what D&G tried to critique in this chapter. Just to reiterate, D&G claimed that psychoanalysis simplifies, constricts everything by reducing complexity to unity. Just think about the name of the chapter, One or Several Wolves, which implies that we have to choose. Either we reduce Wolfman's dream images to the unity of one wolf, or we discuss the multiplicity of wolves that are involved here. In order to better understand this reduction of multiplicity to unity, we should discuss quickly two main concepts that are introduced in this chapter: the body without organs and the collective assemblage of enunciation. The body without organs is a concept that was already developed in DNG's book Anti-Oedipus. Essentially, body without organs refers to the lack of organization within a cluster of organs. A body without organs is not a single body without organs, but rather a cluster of organs deprived of organization. This could be perceived as epistemological argument. Human beings are prone to divide units into logical categories in a tree-like method. So, for example, each organism that we put under our scrutiny has to relate to other organisms in some specific way. Also, those organisms have to be generalized by a single symbol, single signifier on the top. For DNG, however, the beauty of humanity rests in its ability to always escape these already given logical forms of organization. The collective assemblage of enunciation is another concept that DNG discusses. This concept is positioned by DNG against the idea that psychoanalysis can restore persons' full authority over speech or thought. For DNG, there are no individual statements simply because all statements are already there within multiplicities. These statements are products of mechanic assemblages. They're already there in the society. Hence, the only form of enunciation that we may entertain would be that of the collective. When Freud analyzes Wolfman's dream, Freud finds a non-hierarchical rhizome within Wolfman's unconscious. There are multiple wolves that could lend themselves to multiple interpretations. However, Freud is nonetheless determined to perceive this multiplicity as a tree where all lines are bound to signify Oedipus. Freud is subordinating the manifold drives and cathexis of the unconscious to the one, that of the Oedipus. For DNG, the problem with Freud's method lies in his goal to attain normalcy. Freud, in this case, does not want to treat unconscious as a multiplicity or a constantly progressing aggregate, but rather as a combination that can be explained by one, Oedipus. So what if the goal of the analysis is not normalcy? What if the goal of the analysis is to create new things rather than to reiterate the old, the Oedipus? An approach where normalcy is no longer the goal would obviously altogether redefine the way we view analysis of psychic processes. We would have to forget simple triads like id, ego, and superego. We would have to try to locate multiple personalities and desires which all inhibit our mind at the same time. To solidify this point, DNG offer a story about Franny. Franny is listening to the program on wolves. I say to her, "Would you like to be a wolf?" She answers haughtily, "How stupid! You can't be one wolf. You are always 8 or 9, 6 or 7. Meaning that wolves always constitute a pack, a multiplicity. By extension, unconscious constitutes an irreducible multiplicity. Whereas Freud was looking in unconscious for logical metaphors, such as Oedipus, to synthesize the multiplicity, DNG see unconscious itself as a multiplicity which is made out of multiple personalities and desires. For DNG, it is absolutely crucial to dispose of this arborescent dialectic, where we are trying to unify multiple by erecting the one. They would like to see unconscious treated as a multiplicity. With this approach, no determinate interpretation of Wolfman's dream could be produced. We would totally dispose of the linear causality between bodies and organs. Having in mind that unconscious is a multiplicity, we would have to approach it through statistics perhaps, or probability. The myriads of personalities that we develop within our unconscious simply can't be cleanly synthesized by one. Let's recall the number of wolves in Wolfman's dream. For Freud, the number 7 was quite crucial because he was looking for linear causality. However, Every multiple that appears in dreams should not be divisible back to the singular, as Freud would try to do this. Every multiple should be examined as a fragment, a piece of puzzle within a multiplicity of forces. D&G reject this need of logical unity and instead talk about multiplicity, or a body without organs. To quote D&G, the body without organs is opposed to less to organs as such than to the organization of the organs insofar as it composes an organism. For Freud, unconscious composes an organism. For D&G, unconscious is a multiplicity, a path. This approach forces us to think about unconscious in terms of statistics. We have to locate the probable trajectories that the manifold drives and cathexes might exploit. But we also have to understand that these trajectories can always be escaped, avoided. Lines of light may be created. Deviations will always be there. Fortunately, we can use this to our advantage. We can become wolves ourselves. We can locate ourselves at the margins of the social organism without leaving it. This would allow us to be actually creative. We would stop erecting our own edifices over and over again. Thank you.